Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Recovery Classroom. My name is Drew. I am an alcoholic, and today I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I cannot be any more grateful. We're going to do things a little bit impromptu today. As you can tell, I'm not at my normal place wherever I do the monologues at, not at my truck. But definitely a topic I think is worthwhile. I've been having this conversation with a friend of mine the last 24 hours. Quite a bit the last 24 hours, and so I felt it was something worth sharing today. Anyone who knows me knows I ask questions. I still ask questions. I'm always going to ask questions. I've always asked questions. I'm a very inquisitive person. I ask questions for a couple of reasons. One, because I want to learn. There's a shit ton of things out there that I don't know, and whenever we were young and in school, didn't we ask questions? Yeah, we did. That's how we learn things. So I want to learn. But then two, the second reason why I ask questions is because maybe it's a way for me to persuade other people. It's a lot easier for me to help somebody arrive at their own conclusion rather than me just telling them something. But it's also a way for me to persuade myself. And that's where I want to take us a step further. Questions are incredibly powerful. I encourage everyone, and especially in early recovery, get yourself in a habit of showing up to the meeting early. If the meeting time is 7 o'clock, show up at 6:30. So show up at 6. And then stay late. And those are the time periods where you want to ask questions. And if somebody says, well, you can't ask questions in the meeting, tell them to go call their sponsor. You're there to learn. And so ask your fucking question, okay? Tell them to call their sponsor. They'll be okay. But show up before, stay late. And that's where you want to ask questions. Questions are incredibly important, especially in early recovery. Whenever I first came back in the rooms, I asked a ton of questions. Holy shit. I'd show up early and say, hey, how did you handle this situation? Or hey, how did you go about this scenario that I might be in, or whatever? That's where you want to get that experience, strength, and hope from others. And matter of fact, if you show up before and start asking questions, that gives some of the folks in the room an idea of maybe what's on their heart, maybe what they want to share. And so not only will you get something before the meeting, you get something during the meeting if they share on it, if it's a similar topic, and then you can stay late and ask questions after the topic. But there's a caveat to all this. There's a caveat to all this about questions. See, our addiction is incredibly smart. Incredibly smart. I have a job. I have a career. I have a family. I have dogs. and they're all over there. I have, other responsibilities that I have to focus on throughout my day. My addiction does not. My addiction does not. My addiction only has one thing it has to focus on, and that's me. And so it's waiting for me. It's learning my behaviors. It's learning my movements and my patterns, and it's trying to find a vulnerability. And sometimes my addiction can actually use my recovery tools against me. I count my ability to ask questions as a tool in my toolbox for recovery. And again, I still ask questions all the time. But my addiction has learned how to use those questions, to use my inquisitive nature against me. And I was sharing this last night with a friend. When it was 2017, I'd been 4 years sober, dry drunk, wasn't working a program, and I'd broken a rib on vacation. And I remember I was in a lot of pain, didn't want to go to the hospital and pay the out-of-network expense. So we were at dinner one night at an Irish pub, of all places. We were at dinner, and my addiction asked me, hey, what's wrong with just taking a drink? You're in pain. You're in pain, right? And I was like, well, yeah. I was like, now I didn't realize it was my addiction, but I remember just thinking, what's wrong with me having a drink? I mean, I'm 4 years sober. It's not like I'm an alcoholic or anything. See, I'm 4 years sober, so I don't have a drinking problem anymore. So my addiction actually took advantage of my ability and to ask myself questions, of my internal dialogue, as I always refer to it. And of course, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I can answer this question, and I can convince other people that they would do the same thing if they were in my shoes. They would certainly want to take a drink if they were in as much pain as I was. So it made sense. My addiction used my tools against me. And that's where sometimes whenever we're having that internal dialogue, we can sometimes try to justify and sell our own bullshit. While questions are vitally important for learning, and again, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions early in sobriety, we got to be careful, because as we're having that internal dialogue in our head, I spoke on this before many times, as we're having an internal dialogue and we're asking ourselves those internal questions, we got to make sure we're asking honest questions and giving honest answers. Great example, going back to that example when I broke my rib. My addiction was asking me a leading question. It was asking me a question it already knew the answer to. And it was asking me a question to help bring me to my own conclusion, to persuade myself that it's okay for me to take a drink. My addiction wasn't asking me an honest question. It was just asking me a question that was going to lead me to back to drinking. And that's exactly what it did. That was in August of 2017. By January of 2018, I was back up to drinking a full bottle of alcohol a day. I want to encourage you, pay attention. I shared this yesterday. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Think about what you're thinking about, and be cognizant of the questions you're asking yourself, and challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. Is that an honest question? Again, I ask myself questions all the time. What are you thinking, or whatever? Make sure it's an honest question that you're asking yourself. Make sure the question you're trying to sort out in your brain is an honest question. Make sure there's not an ulterior motive, like your addiction trying to, oh, it's okay for you to just use once. You've been sober for 6 months, or you've been clean for 8 months. Is there not an ulterior motive there? Question everything, even your questions. And I thought that was a great point to kind of cap off yesterday's conversation, about pay attention to what you're paying attention to, think about what you're thinking about, and question what you're questioning. With that being said, I'll let you guys go. Thank you guys for letting me come in and share 5 to 10 minutes of your day with you. You guys absolutely keep me sober, and I cannot be any more appreciative. If there's a topic you'd like to have discussed, feel free to drop it into an email to me, drew@recoveryclassroom.org. I will take a look at it and see what we can do. We'll be talking again soon. Remember, guys, you can't get drunk if you don't take that first drink.